Hey there, I'm Cutsy, and if you could please hit that like and subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. So today we are going to be getting back to the cliff notes of the trial that was going on last week between Linda Stermer, who is having a retrial for the red rum of her husband. But first, let's have our little autism anecdote of the day. Autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disability that often presents challenges before the age of 3 and lasts throughout a person's lifetime. You don't ever get better from autism. It just is how you are for the rest of your life. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Now for today's nails, we're going to be doing autism-inspired little designs again. We're going to be using the puzzle pieces. And we're going to be using the colors, which are, it's not just blue anymore. It's red, yellow, green, blue. Some people like to add the white in, but we'll be going along with that theme. And I'm going to be using my acrylic colors again. Now, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm using a coffin shape, and the nails that I was trying out for this are kind of flimsy. I'm not real impressed by them, but I'm going to be using this. This is the gelish, it's the base like bonder gel, builder gel. And you can see the difference between that and the candy lover, which is just called the base coat. It's just really like clear polish, so it's not as thick. And the gelish is going to give me that nice kind of strength to go over that nail first, so I'm going to use that when I do my base for these nails. Now, the neat thing is about gelish, the curable polish, the gel polish, is that it already has like a base coat in it. So you're not supposed to, if you're using it on your natural nails or on, like, say, acrylic nails, you're not supposed to have to use a base coat. And I've had really, really good luck with it, with not using base coats and using the gelish and using the base coat both. So it's just one step that if you don't have to use it and you're in a hurry, hey, why not? So I base coated all of these nails so I could give them, like I said, some nice strength. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of the colors that represent autism awareness. And I'm going to do some neat little designs, some freehand and then some with the jewels. And, as always, just play around with it. You don't have to have your nails completely different. If you decide that you love one of the nails and you decide to do all 10 of your nails that one design, that's great. If you decide to mix it up, match it up, that's what you do. Make it your own. Just have fun with it. So, now that we've talked about that, I am going to start painting these babies, and we are going to start back to where we left off with the Linda Stermer trial. Now, when we left off at the last video, they were bringing up Scott Leroy. He was going to be their last witness of the day. He is a retired Michigan State Police fire investigator and ME investigator. And he specializes in point of origin. And they took pretty much most of the afternoon to go over what his credentials were and all of his training, yada, yada. So basically, when it got down to it, he was the one, he took pit photos for the fire investigation also. He took aerial photos. He went through with the fire department on the big boom trucks, all of that, to take pictures from every single angle that he could. And any pictures outside that he noticed, just anything at all. In the yard, in the house, in the driveway, anything that he noticed that was odd. That was one of his first jobs. And he also noticed, as he was walking through the scene, that there were puddles of red liquid on the ground, it looked like, and he couldn't figure out, he wasn't positive what that was, but he took pictures of it anyway. And when they were putting items in the bag with Todd, he noticed that the gray sweatpants had the odor of accelerant, is what he called it. He said he wasn't sure, or a fuel, he wasn't sure what it was, but he could smell the smell of something that could be used as an accelerant. He then interviewed Linda. Now, this is what she told him about that day. Linda said that she saw again, down in the basement, doing laundry, hears a noise, hears a scream, And she runs upstairs and she sees the recliner on fire. And then she sees Todd standing over by one of the main floor bedrooms. And he was completely engulfed in flames. And there was a trail of fire between the recliner and Todd standing across the room. So, here's another story change. Now, they finished up that day, and then they opened back up on day 4 with, again, the fire investigator that specialized in the point of origin. So after all of his findings, all of his photographs, reconstructions, everything, his findings were that this fire was intentionally set. And that Todd Stermer was in the area of the point of origin, which was the living room. So the next witness they bring up, her name is Cynthia DeLoach. And she was the clerk at that gas station, that Marathon gas station that Linda has said that she went to that morning. It was January 7th. She saw her at the gas station. She saw her making a purchase, an out-of-store purchase at the gas pump. And then she rung her up for an in-store purchase after she purchased gas outside at the pump. She said she remembered it was pump 3. But instead of putting the nozzle in the gas tank of her black Blazer that she was driving, she went around to the back. She unlatched the window and lifted it up. Had one of those like separated, tailgate window things. Opened it up and started pumping gasoline inside the back of the Blazer. She said she wasn't able to see what kind of container she was pumping it into, but that she knew most definitely she was not putting it in her car. She was putting it into a container or putting it into something in the back of this Blazer. She then came into the store and purchased some, few things, and the clerk said that she remembered that, just small talk, Linda said, it's really nice that you carry breakfast foods here. This is at 9:07 a.m. And the first purchase shows a purchase of $11.01. That was for the gas. And an in-store purchase of $7.74. That was for breakfast items and just, whatever stuff. And she said she also remembered that Linda was by herself at the station. The defense ends up trying to clean up afterwards and asks if it was really suspicious that someone opened up their trunk or the back of their SUV to pump gas into a container. And the clerk said no. But I'm thinking, no, it probably wasn't suspicious at the time, but she noticed it. And then, just so happens that this person is a fatal house fire a couple hours later. It might have popped in your head. Wait a minute. I remember her pumping it in the back, not in the tank. So, I believe they said that the gas was $2.16 a gallon. She got $11.01 in gas, and that ended up being 5 gallons of gas. Or I think they said just a little over $4. Or just a little over 4 gallons of gas. That's what it was. So 5-gallon gas can, in the back. The next person that they brought in was, now this guy, he was in the documentary too, and his name is Steve Willison. He was an attorney for the home insurance company. And what his job was to help insurance companies determine if they had to pay out, basically. So in cases where there was something that was an accident or at the hand of someone else, or just, they didn't know, then he would come in and his firm would come in and they would do, interviews, investigations, etc. He interviewed her about the details of their marriage, they met in 89, they were married in 93, married for 13 years, that divorce had been discussed throughout the last few years, that Todd was the one bringing it up. She did not want a divorce until the last year, but then they had made up and everything was going to be okay, and she had chosen against it. That finances was a big point of their contention. We've heard that from other people, that she left Todd or she felt Todd wasn't working hard enough and running his business. He was just kind of, letting it go, just taking it as is. They just never had enough money. She said back in 2002, they sold close to 90 acres out of their 120 that they had out there to pay things off. And they sold it for about $99,000. But she didn't know what bills were paid. She didn't know where that money went. She said Todd also borrowed in total around $100,000 and paid from a friend, I believe it was, and paid off with a $200,000 mortgage on their property in 2003. He paid off bills and made investments, she said. And when he asked her how much debt they were in now, she's like, maybe $50,000. So to her, it wasn't, that big of a deal. He asked what Todd's job was, and she told him he bought surplus, like Army surplus equipment, and then resold it. So he'd buy like a bunch of big bulk, sleeping bags, gloves, boots, whatever, and then sell buy them for a quarter of the price and then sell them for half the price. He asked her about inspections and permits to start construction. And she said, yes, they had gotten all of those things, but after the house fire, she had gone in to pull all of those records, and she found out that there were significant changes between the plans that Todd had turned in to get all of his permits and the floor plan and the things that he had actually built in the house. So, alluding to, you build as you go, but let's say you decide, I'm going to put the bathroom on the other side of the house. Instead of going through and resubmitting the plans and getting another permit, just change it yourself, and because you're the one going to be living there, and you don't think about it, no big deal. Well, there's reasons why you have to get permits and things have to be checked by inspectors and things like that, to make sure they're safe. But anyway, I thought they're probably alluding to something like that. So anyway, fast forward to 1998, Todd gets knee surgery, and he becomes addicted to his pain meds. At that point, they had built the basement of the house, and then they stopped. And they planned to just kind of build here and there as they got the cash. But once he got the knee surgery, he was down for the count, so it just got left, basement done. And then in 2002, they began to start building again. Talked about him borrowing money from his mother, his brother, his sister, for a total of about $175,000. And then she said that with the horses, because she had admitted that she had, I believe it was like 31 horses, and said he was getting tired of all the energy that she gave the horses. Not how much money it cost, but the energy, the time that she was giving the horses instead of him. She said Todd was addicted to the painkillers, weed, and sleeping pills. So, and he was, at the time, taking Ambien and pain meds. The Ambien was for sleeping, and the pain meds were for his ear. She had stated that morning he had taken his meds, antibiotics, and antihistamines, and his pain pill. So he was loopy most of the time anymore, because he was always on those things. And that he had been accusing her of having an affair. She said once she had to leave work for an ankle injury, and he accused her of cheating. But that he didn't mean it, he was just angry. And that he also accused her of cheating with her work friend, Kate Fox. Said that she reported 2 instances of his abuse. Once he pushed her in the wall because she made a cake for work and not for home. And the second time was the night before the fire. He wanted to have relations, tried to force her, and she pushed him away and wouldn't let him. And she said he just went to sleep. There was one other time when the police were called, but Todd talked her out of it, of pressing charges because she had also hit him, and he said, there was nobody around to take the kids, and they would have to go to CPS. And the police did verify that, yes, if you don't have anyone to pick up your children, we'll have to put them in protective custody until you're out of jail. And so she didn't report it. Now we move ahead to 2006, when she spoke to her attorney about the possibility of a divorce. She described an incident when he came in after hunting, walking up behind her with his rifle saying, "I'm sorry I have to do this," and then laughing because he scared her. She said at that time he was also really, really deep into studying the Bible. Now remember, her daughter said that she had called the night before the fire, and he said that he talked to God, and God said that one of the two of them was leaving that house in a body bag, and he hadn't decided who yet. So she said and then he was now back here we are in the interview with the insurance guy, and she told him that that Todd had told her, according to the Bible, even if she divorced him, if she got remarried, it was still considered adultery. And if he divorced her, that he was putting her in the position of being an adulterer, and that was also a sin, and so they could never divorce. She could never leave him. Okay. And then he had talked about taking his own life because he was hating his life. He wanted to move. He wanted to move to Canada. She said he stopped playing sports, and he seemed very depressed. Very, very depressed. When asked, she said she was positive she didn't put any gas in a gas can. And that morning, Todd woke up when she was cooking breakfast at around 10 a.m. Now, next up on the witness stand is Brad Stermer. This is Todd Stermer's brother. And he talked to Linda a few days after the fire. He said that she told him that she was doing laundry, and she heard Todd scream, went upstairs to see smoke and flames, and ran out the front door. He asked her about the fire alarms because, didn't the fire alarms go off? Because he had helped install them. They were hardwired into the house. And she said that Todd had dismantled them. According to Todd, though, from what he told his brother, they had to be hardwired in according to code, and the inspection was coming soon. Because this house, remember, was under construction constantly. He also told a story about Todd wanting to buy property from his family after his dad had passed away. There were 2 houses on the property, and they moved into the big house when the father had passed away. That was the house he was living in, and started to work on the small house to sell it. Oddly, the small house caught on fire shortly after they moved into the big house, and was a total loss. Now, here comes the part that she really didn't want anyone to know. Next witness name is Chris Williams. He worked with Linda in 2006 at ChemLink. She had told him that her marriage was not working and she was getting divorced the first day that she met him. And when he said he was attracted to her, but when he found out she was married, he told her, "Listen, if I'm single when you become single, let me know. I'll get a hold of you." So later on that day, apparently, a coworker had given Linda his phone number, Chris's phone number, without his permission. And all of a sudden, he said his phone started blowing up. Blowing up that night, blowing up that week. She was stalking him, showing up at the grocery store, showing up at work after shift. And he said they actually started talking. She kind of wore him down, and they started talking, and eventually they started dating. He said he wasn't in it for anything serious, though, because he knew she was married, and, until she was not married, then they weren't going to have, they couldn't really have a regular relationship, an official relationship. He stated that even though he was uncomfortable because she was married, that the relationship, though, eventually turned physical about a month after they were seeing each other. And after that, they started seeing each other a few times a week. And they would just go to his house, get physical, about 3 to 4 times a week. He said that he was worried her husband would find out. She continued to show up after work to his house and calling him. She continued to speak about divorce, all the way from 6 months before the fire. Now, he said he found out about the fire from the news. She didn't call and tell him or anything like that. They were still together, according to him, at this time. And when he asked her how it started, she said she was downstairs doing laundry, and they were fighting back and forth, yelling back and forth, and she heard a change in the tone of his voice. She went upstairs to check on him and saw smoke and flames. She left out the front door and got in the van to go get help and told him nothing else after that. The relationship ended finally a month later at the advisement of her lawyer. And he said that Friday before the fire, she was furious that he had traded in, I believe it was a van that she had for, I think it was the Blazer, but she was really, really mad that he had done that. Or traded a truck for the van. Might have been that brown van, I'm not positive. And he said he had never seen that side of her before, had never seen her so angry. It was just, and he said also throughout their physical relationship, he never once saw any marks on her, like she had been hit or injured. When defense came up and asked about their shifts at work, Chris said that he was only ever on first shift, which upset the defense, and they're trying to prove this whole thing with when she stated she switched shifts, and that's why she and this Kate Fox stopped talking. He also stated again that the day that they met was the first day she called him. And he said that she constantly told him she was working on leaving her husband. It was 2 years later, detectives came to him, served him with a subpoena, and interviewed him about phone calls between the two of them. And then he stated that later on, there was a lot of chaos between she and Kate Fox at their place of work about, well, nobody really knew. They just thought Kate was kind of being angry, but we'll find out later on that wasn't necessarily true. And finally, he wrapped it up by talking about that he had been to the property long after the house had burned, that they had remained in contact after they quit being in a relationship, and that she had come and picked him up and drove him there almost 2 years later, just to show him, I guess. He said he really didn't understand why she drove him there, but she did. Now, this next witness is going to be pretty important, too. Kate Ilge. She was a mutual friend with Kate Fox. She met Linda a year before the fire and saw her a total of 3 times. Twice before the fire to see the horses, because Linda raised these curly-haired horses, I guess. And the third time was she took one of the horses that had been displaced by the fire to her property, and she had come over to Linda's property where the house had burned down to get the horse and to get some materials. Kathy stated that they were tearing this big deck apart that was on the back of the house to use the wood to build a lean-to at her property for the horse, and they went into the shed to go get some tools. And she said she noticed that all of the kids, like school pictures and stuff like that, and like special pictures, you know, the ones that you frame and hang on your wall, were all stacked up in the shed on top of this other box. And she said at first she thought, gosh, that's a good thing they were out there. She didn't lose them. But then she started thinking, well, gosh, it's not real safe to have them out there because it's a farm. There's nobody out there. All the rodents and mice will be, you know, chewing at the paper. And so she suggested to Linda that she might want to move those, and she just really didn't get any reaction at all. She said that after that, Linda had given her some money to go into town and go get some waters for everybody because they were busy working on this. And that while she was gone, she said she was going to be going in the house to find her rings and a cup, and to get a cup out of the dishwasher. And Kathy used to be a firefighter, and she said so she knew that was dangerous going in a burned out building. So she asked her, do you have permission to go in there? It could be really dangerous. And she's like, oh yeah, I got permission. She said this was only a few days after the fire. And we heard earlier in the testimony that the dates that they were investigating this fire were the whole month, at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks afterwards, when they were going through everything, sifting through everything. So she'd gotten on that property when they were still in their investigation. They might not have even been through everything yet. So she went in Linda let her use her van to go get drinks in town, and she noticed that there were jewelry in the center console of the van, a bunch of jewelry. When she got back, she said, hey, Linda, there's a bunch of jewelry in the console. And Linda says, oh, no, that's not the jewelry I'm looking for. And she also stated that Linda did have 2 cell phones. So here's something that's being reiterated again. She had 2 cell phones, and she knew this because she had been called from both numbers, and both times it was Linda. She alerted police that they needed to talk to Kate Fox based on the things that she had told her about Linda. Kate Fox was the next on the stand. She was Linda's good friend. They started working together June 6th. They had kind of met in town and with kids sports and things like that, and they both got hired on the same day and decided to carpool into Kalamazoo together because it was quite a drive from Lawrence. She had told on many of the drives, she told Kate that her husband was abusive and that she wanted out of her marriage. She told her about her relationship with Chris and that that she wanted to be with him. They talked every night on the phone on the way home, and she also stated that he was the best lover she'd ever had. It used to be that Linda would drive and Kate would stay out in the van, or in the Blazer, if Linda stopped by Chris's house on the way home, and that's something she would do. She would stop, run in, have a little fun, and then run back out. And it kind of sounded to me like she was a lot maybe more invested emotionally than he was. But she also told her that she had 2 phones and that the family only knew of one of them. And she would either hide it at Kate's house, she'd have Kate take the phone home with her, or under the dashboard of her Blazer. She used that phone to talk to Chris. She stated that she was the one that called the police in November. This is the cake incident. That she had received a call from Linda stating that she had a pew-pew and needed one good reason not to shoot Todd. She had previously talked about ways to get rid of him. Things like shooting him, running him over with a car, poisoning. Then late in 2006, she told Kate she was worried Todd was catching on to the affair. So she opened a P.O. box to hide the credit card and phone bills that she was using to talk with Chris and go places with him. And she would ask Kate to pick up the mail for that on occasion. When she was later asked about the fire, she told Kate she had ran over Todd because it was smoky and she didn't see him when she was going to get help. After the fire, she had asked Kate to go by work and get a bag of items from her locker. It happened to get misplaced at Kate's house, and Linda was really, really mad and accused her of stealing the items. It was just horrible to her. And she said it felt like a bag of mail, but she never looked inside. And she said a few days later, after the fire, Linda had asked her to run her out to the house so she could grab a cup out of the dishwasher that hadn't been run because it had tranquilizers in it, and she didn't want police to find it. The reason they stopped being friends... Now, first of all, did you catch that? Because there was a cup in the dishwasher that had tranquilizers in it, and she didn't want police to find it. The reason they stopped being friends is because she had... This is what Kate stated. is because she had taken out a loan in her name for $5,000 after the fire, because Linda was about to lose the house, and she wanted to at least keep the property and fix the house, of course. But so Linda takes out this is one of those loans where they send you a check in the mail, you sign it, take it into your bank. That's your loan through this other company. Your terms of your loan or whatever. They're just scams. Don't ever do them. But huge, super high interest. She did that, and then about 3 or 4 months later, she gets a notice because all the bills are coming to her house, which she said she ignored because she assumed Linda was just going and paying on these. But she finds out that Linda never made a single payment towards this loan. And when she confronted her at work, Linda stated that she'd never borrowed any money from her. She didn't know what she was talking about. She also stated at the end of her testimony that Linda did say that she never ended up giving him the tranquilizers because he had already taken something that morning. Now, next is that Dardita Gordon, who is now deceased. That was an inmate that was in a cell with Linda at the Van Buren County Jail. So they spent 4 days in the holding cell together and then over a month in the same cell. And she claims that Linda said she was in jail for murdering her husband and that she did not do it. So this is what she told her in the holding cell. And the first day they met, she was hysterically crying. And that this had been going on for 2 years. They asked her what she had said to her. And she said she only said she had had an argument with Todd the first time. That she wasn't at home the time of the fire. She said she was off property. So here's another story change. That they had already had an argument and that meds were involved with Todd, that like she had given it to him. And at one time she had told him that yes, she did start the fire. She stated that Linda said that she started the fire with gasoline while he was sleeping. She also claims Linda told her that she struck him with an object during the argument. Now, the last witness of the day on Friday was Corey Lee Pierce, which is Linda's nephew that she and Todd had adopted and raised as their own. He stated that the loft area was going to be Trevor, which was the youngest's bedroom. And that there was an argument because that night and that day because his dad found out that she was cheating and she was denying it. He stated that the boys' bedrooms were in the basement and that neither Todd nor Linda came downstairs. That he was in his bedroom that night. He didn't hear either of them. The prosecution specifically asked if they had snuggled with Linda and watched TV, or did they hear Todd go in the furnace room at all? So I figured this would probably be important later on, right? The next morning, she came down to ask Corey to get the younger boys ready to go get breakfast and see a movie because she and Todd were getting a divorce and they needed to talk about splitting everything up. That they needed to sneak out so Todd thought they were still in the basement because then the argument wouldn't get as heated, is what she told Corey. And when they were getting ready to leave, that Linda stood blocking the way into the living room. Corey said he saw Todd in his armchair on the way out, and that Trenton, the youngest, tried to run into the living room to say goodbye to his dad, but she blocked him and just told him, no, go. He said normally it was a rule in their house that they hugged and kissed their parents goodbye any time that they left, that it was an absolute rule, and they would get in trouble if they didn't say goodbye. So they took the black Blazer that day. The keys were in it. This was Linda's vehicle. Todd drove the van normally. He noticed her purse was on the kitchen counter as he left. Now remember where that purse was, on the kitchen counter. Now during the movie, a friend called to tell him the house was on fire, and they left and headed to the house and arrived to see the house still smoking. He stated that he was aware that Linda had 2 phones, and she had previously asked him to catch certain pieces of mail out of the mailbox to hide from Todd, like a phone bill. And she said that that he had not seen Todd working on the furnace, that they did not have any heat issues in the house, and that gas cans were normally stored in sheds or barns where there was no reason for a gas can to be in the front yard. Afterwards, the stories that she told the boys started with story 1, she was doing laundry, heard yelling when she looked upstairs. There's too much smoke, so she ran out the basement door. Story 2, heard yelling, ran upstairs, saw Todd on fire, but couldn't do anything because the heat was too intense, so she ran out the front door. Next, she simply ran upstairs, there was too much smoke, and she ran out the front door. When she was pushed about the story changes, she'd freak out, start crying hysterically, or get angry and take off, or she would let the middle brother beat the daylights out of Trenton, who was the one who mostly asked her questions about this. The defense came up and asked, said, you were close to your mother, weren't you? And Corey said, no, we never were. So that seemed to kind of upset defense. I think he wants to paint this picture of this loving, loving mother, and I don't know if that's how the boys see it. He was impeached on stating previously that empty gas cans would be left near the front porch to be filled if they were empty, and that he wasn't often home with school and a girlfriend, and couldn't guarantee that Todd had not worked on the furnace. But the last question of the day, prosecution brought up and redirect that he had been living with Linda during the investigation, during her arrest, and that she was still telling him during the trial what to say, and that's why testimony and police reports may not match. He was afraid of her, and he thought he was not going to be able to live without her. I think because of the money. Okay, y'all. Well, that wraps up day 5 of the trial testimony of Michigan versus Linda Stermer, the burned and beaten murder trial. I believe the judge talked about a holiday weekend again, so I don't know if there's court Monday or not. If there is, then I'll pick back up on Monday. If not, I'll pick back up on Tuesday and do the highlights of the next day. And so this is quite complex. I'm starting, at first I was kind of thinking, rough marriage, rough life, but now I'm kind of wondering, I don't know, did she do this? Did he do this? What happened? We'll have to see. It's getting interesting. All right, everybody have a good one, and I will talk to you later. Cutsy out.